Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you saw my last video, you'll know that I was having problems with my pressure washer. If you didn't see that, I'll leave a link to the last video, go back and watch that first. But I didn't actually say what had happened with it and what was wrong. I was feeling a bit miffed at the time that it wasn't working, so I wasn't really in the mood for filming a lot. So today I'll tell you what's wrong with it, I'll tell you what's going to happen with the pressure washer, and then at the end of the video I'll show you the finished results, because I'll hire a pressure washer to finish it off before I get this back. So what happened was, I'd done all the main path with the whirl away, which worked great. I went up onto the top patio and I started with the whirl away, but there was a lot of black spot and it just wasn't getting that off. So I'd gone over onto the turbo nozzle. I'd got the pressure washer set up maybe 30 meters away, 25 meters away, out round the corner, so it wasn't making too much noise, and went from the whirl away to the turbo nozzle and spraying away as you saw in the last video, and all of a sudden just stopped. So I thought it'd run out of fuel, went back and checked it. There's still fuel in it, so I tried a few things, but what I noticed when I tried to restart it, when you get to the compression stroke, it is really tight. It will pull over, but it is very, very tight. So it hasn't seized. Checked all the oils, I let the pressure off the hose, I opened the dump valve, tried everything, didn't work. So got onto Dual Pumps, who rang me back pretty much straight away actually. Told me to try a few things, check the spark plug to make sure that was working, which it was. I was getting a spark off the plug. When I took the plug out, I could pull it over and it would pull over easily. Anyway, they decided it wasn't anything I could do to put right, so it's going back to Dual Pumps. Now, to go back to Dual Pumps, for the carrier, you have to drain the fluids out. So you have to drain the petrol out of the petrol tank, you have to drain the engine oil out. Now, because I'm a bit of a hoarder, fortunately, I kept the bungs that come with it when it's delivered for the gearbox and for the pump. Now, the gearbox and the pump, once you're using them, you change them over, they come with it, you change them over and they've got breathers in. So you can't transport them with the breathers in, but fortunately I did keep the bungs they came with. So little tip for you there, if you buy a new pressure washer, keep the transport bungs. So I don't have to drain those, just change the bungs back over. I'm going to take the hose out so that doesn't have to go. Drain the fluids down, and then I'm going to put it onto a pallet and strap it on there, and it'll be collected tomorrow. So I'll get that done and send it off. Hopefully it won't be too long before it comes back again, and yeah, I'll hire one to finish the job off. So let's get this all drained down. So the first thing I'm doing is taking the hoses off. Just undo the Jubilee clips. Now, if you haven't got one of these are a really handy tool. It's called a nut spinner. It's like a screwdriver with a socket on the end, but they're made for doing Jubilee clips, and it saves you slipping with a screwdriver and stabbing your hand with a screwdriver. So I'll get the hoses off. Might take a bit of persuasion. Take the Jubilee clips off them, and then I'll get the hoses off. Now the hoses are off, I'm just going to take the gearbox and the pump caps off and change them for the travel ones. If you do buy a new pressure washer, make sure that you do change these, because the ones that come with them are breathable. The ones that you put in for when you're using it are breathable. So there's the dipstick for the pump, and put the drain in, put the travel plug in, and I'll do that up in a second, and then I'll just put that into a bag to keep it clean, and it's in the labelled bag that says gearbox dipstick, and then the pump. There's the pump dipstick, so they go in there, and the bung. So that is now okay for transportation. I can tighten those two up nice and tight, and that can be transported with the fluids in, which is how they come. And once again, put it into the one that says pump dipstick. So seal those up, little Ziploc bags as they come in, and those are kept safe for when I get the machine back. So now I'm going to drain the fuel out. So to drain out your fuel, you've got this little nut on the bottom here, and you've also got one on the carburetor, on the little tub at the bottom of the carburetor. So if you undo this one, if you have your fuel switched off, it won't move. I've got a funnel underneath and a petrol can ready to catch it. Just undo that. If you turn your fuel off, it's going to stop too much coming out in one go and soaking you. So take that off. And then once you've got that off, make sure your funnel's in the right place. You can turn that on and that will drain your fuel out of your petrol tank. So once your fuel's empty, just put the bowl back on. Now, this is only an aluminium casting, so it needs to be done up tight enough that it won't leak, but you don't want to do it up really tight and strip the thread, because that would be really annoying. Now we've got to drain the oil out. Now this is probably what I consider to be the biggest design flaw of these pressure washers, and that is how you drain the oil out of here. There's a drain nut, but it's really awkward to get to, stuck right under the engine, 12mm nut, and to drain it off you have to drain it all across the plate. So what I'm using is a paint tray, so I can get that underneath there, big area to catch the oil that's draining out. So we'll get that done. So once I've loosened it off with a spanner, I'm just going to undo it with my fingers. And let the oil drain out of there. I might just tilt it back a bit so it just drains backwards. It'll come straight off the back then. And just undo the dipstick, let a bit of air in through the top. Now you can see this oil is really black, and that's probably only been in there for about 25 hours, so that hasn't had very long at all. So you can see why it's important to keep your maintenance up on these little machines. So now that's nearly empty. I'm just going to drop it back down flat and just let it drain the rest out. Just tilt it up a little bit so it doesn't just all run forward. But that should get the majority out, and then I'll just give it a wipe down with a paper towel and clean it up. And then give the frame a wipe off, get all that excess oil off. Still just a little bit draining out. I think that's it. And then just replace your bung. And tighten it back up. So just wipe all that excess oil off. So now just put your dipstick back in. Make sure it's clean, giving it a wipe off with a paper towel. So that's all clean. So now that that's all drained down, so I've drained the fuel down, I've drained the oil down, and I've put the travel plugs back in for the pump and for the gearbox. So you should always dispose of your dirty oil and fuel responsibly, whatever provisions you've got for that in your area. So now I've done that, all I need to do is strap it onto a pallet ready for collection, and it will go back to dual pumps. So with all that done, we'll now go and see how we get on with the rest of the pressure washing. So there it is, all strapped down. I insist it's strapped to a pallet, so strap down tight on the pallet. ready for dual pumps to come and pick it up now. So we'll go off now and finish the job. So there we are. At last, the job is finished. All cleaned up. Still wet there, but all looking nice. Gave the steps a very quick blast off, but didn't want to give them too much. And the top patio, everything's been put back on it for the customers, and all clean and finished, just drying off. It's a really nice job.